Where I was I wouldn't say it was a bad area, but it wasn't like you and I drove through there years ago. The further east you go, the more beautiful it gets. And this is just like 2 blocks in, 3 blocks in. Nothing on the right. Right. All right. Well, Lane's over there. I don't want to sit here and still leave her. I got one in my pocket.
Wait, what?
All right.
I'm calling you up for the Haftarah on the line. Oh, yeah.
Check.
Yep, 1, 2. Fly right there. I don't hear mine when I play it. Does it like it? It's now part of the repertoire. That's awesome. could probably do it that way. So we start with the poem and then we're good. Okay. Shana Tova. If we do it 3 times, it has to happen. Shana Tova. Shana Tova. Well, now I know it's going to be a great year. That was 3 times. I can count. Shana Tova. No, don't say anything. Then it'll ruin it. In a moment, we're going to have Rabbi Adler open with a poem. We'll head right into Kol Nidre. But I want to ask you this year, don't just observe the ritual. Don't just be intellectually stimulated by the ritual. Be in the ritual. So the ritual is this. You're part of the performance. Look around. You're part of a cast of characters, and you're all in the cast. You're not on the outside of the cast. You are in the cast, right? We're the audience, and you are the players. And what's about to happen after the poem is that a heavenly tribunal is assembled. And in this ritual performance, you are half mortal and half angel. So as the divine and celestial tribunal court forms, you stand there with everyone else who are also half angel and half mortal. And in this ritual drama, all the things that are in the service tonight, all those wonderful things that I'm not arrogant, and I don't gossip, and I restrain myself, and I don't judge, and all these things. You don't. That half of you that's an angel, you don't do those things. You don't even feel like doing those things. You aren't even meant to do these things. Angels, that half of you is, I know what I'm like when I don't do those things, and that's the real me. And then the other half of you is flesh and blood, basav adam. It's mortal. Sometimes I'm going to do those things. I'm missing the mark. And you know what? I'm just a yid, along with all the other yidden in this room dressed in white, who are also just half angel and half mortal. And so let me embrace my angel self. Let the heavenly tribunal forgive when I am my mortal self. And let me practice this special ritual that only happens once a year, leaning in the direction of how good it feels to be my angel self. Rabbi Adler?
Kol Nidre. Outside, the grasses lean toward evening. The sumac dips its leaves in crimson, clustering fists full of soft, tart seed. The purple aster and goldenrod nod along the bank of the Huron on its silent glide through our town. It is sometimes enough to watch the sky roll toward night, the orange moon yawn itself awake over the horizon. It is sometimes enough to know that we tried our hardest, even though we have far to go. Inside, we gather ourselves into rows, our bodies curved into chairs like questions, or standing in straight exclamation. The ark before us, robed in white, will open itself to prayer, to lift our heavy grief, heal our sick, erase our fear, to grant us life. Some prayers leap forward with hope. Some fold backward into the mist of memory, seeking comfort, finding forgiveness. The gates of heaven open as we cradle Torah in our arms. Promises of the past bend around us. Each of us a scroll. What will we write of ourselves? Avinu Malkeinu, God of our fathers and mothers, bless the setting of the sun, bless the rising of our hearts.
Please rise as the ark is opened. We're on page 204. And we'll take the crowns off. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Leave it open.
Yeshiva Shemala, Yeshiva Shemata, Al Dat Hamakom Vadadagal, Anu Matin Nidre, Im Ha'abayanim.
205.
Kol Nidre, Vesarei, Vecharamei, Vekonamei, Vechunuye, Vekinusei, Ushevud, Dindarna, Udishtabana, Udacharimna, V'diasarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim Habalenu letova kon yicharadna v'hon kon Yehon Sharon Shvitin Betelin Uvutalin La Sheririn La Kayamin Nidrana La Nidre Vesarana La Hesarea Hushuatana La Shavuot Kol Nidre Vesarei V'charamei V'konamei V'chinuye V'kinusei Ushavuot Dindarna Udishtabana Hodacharimna Vidyasana Anafshatana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Ad Yom Kippurim Habalenu Letova Kon Yichradnavon Kon Yehon Sharon Shvitin Betelin Uvutalin La Shiririn V'la Kayamin Nidrana La Nidre Vesarana La Hesarea Ushuatana La Shavuot Kol Nidre Vesarei V'charamei V'konamei V'chinuye V'kinusei Ushavuot Dindana Udishtabana Hodacharimna Vidyasarna Al-Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Zed Yom Kippurim Habaleinu Letova Kol Nidre Kon Shvitin, Betelin, Uvutalin, La Sheririn, La Kayamin, Nidrana La Nidre, Besarana La Esarea. Ushuatana lahashivon. V'nislach l'chol adad v'nei Yisrael v'lager hagavet ocham hi l'chol ha'am bishgagam. Slachna lavon hamazeh ki kol dechazecha v'chashan asad hamazeh mitzvah b'chein v'sham ne'amar Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu v'kiyamanu v'gianu lazman hazeh.
We remain standing as the scrolls are returned to the ark, and we prepare for the Baruch Hu on 207.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam V'od. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam V'od.
We may be seated. Post-bar or Brit Mitzvah teenagers are welcome to head downstairs for a Kol Nidre discussion with Mira Sussman at this time as we continue down the page.
El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam V'od, Baruch Atah Adonai, Amari V'Ravim.
208, we prepare for Shema.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו, ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ונתן לבניך ודיברת בם ושבתך ואיתך ולכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו תותפות בעיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך וידברך.
We continue silently on 209.
Adonai Elechem Emet.
$210.
Umalchuto, Baratzon Kiblu Alehem, Moshe uMiriam uBnei Yisrael, L'chanu Shira, V'simcha Rabba v'amru cholam, Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha nedam b'kodesh, Norati lo osefelen. Malchutcha rova v'chavokei yom lifnei Moshe Zeli, Anu v'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam avoed. V'nemar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov yolo miyad chazak mimeno baruch ata Adonai ya Yisrael.
Responsively with me on page 211, please. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully and to awaken again to life, our sovereign. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. And remove the evil forces that surround us. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. Amen.
Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha baruch ata Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu yal kol amo Yisrael ya Yerushalayim.
On page 212, we're just moments away from the silent Amidah. So what's special coming up now, we didn't get it on Rosh Hashanah, are the confessionals, the Ashamnus and the Al-Chetz. They're both a little different. The Ashamnus don't really vary, and they're highly collective, and they're meant to be interpreted somewhat. If it's stealing is not just what you would imagine as robbing somebody, but stealing is understood through the Holiness Code tomorrow, could be not giving as much as you really should be tithing to the unfortunate and to the poor. That's considered stealing according to the rabbis. So they are highly collective, and they are meant to go beyond the obvious and the literal. And then the Al-Chetz can vary. So I hope that you find yourself somewhere within the Al-Chetz and in the Ashamnus authentically before we get to repeat them together in our repetition. I'll share with you that it was pretty exciting as I was learning with my co-teacher who was leading the lesson, Aviva Panish, with our amazing 6th and 7th grade class, which is bursting at the seams. And we were looking at the Ashamnus, and Aviva showed them different versions, and she asked, like, which ones are jumping out at you? And one thing that really jumped out at people was one of the acrostic translations, where they're trying to match the alphabetical things to English alphabet, was for the sin of being bored. And they were like, there's a sin of being bored, and it led, which I love, to a fascinating conversation among them of whether that's really a sin. Now, I knew it was, because my wife had taught me years ago when the kids were first very little that she said, look, we have to let them be bored. because it's only if they're bored that they'll create something to entertain themselves. So that only by allowing them to actually experience boredom will they start playing and inventing and creating. And so, but they were having this amazing discussion of it. And so with that in mind, let something jump out and find a way for you into one of the Al-Chaitz or one of the Ashamnus. Please rise on 212. We are in the second paragraph, and we'll be heading into the silent Amidah at the bottom of the page.
כי ביום הזה אכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם, מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו. יקדש ויקדש שמי רבה, יאמר יברח חירותי ומלך מלכותי, וחייכו וביומכם וחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם, ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך. יתברך, ישתבח, יתברך רבי נשא, וירבי ללב ולשמי שמי לקודשה ברכו. לילה לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ימה ואמרו אמן.
Silent Amidah 213 through 221. For those who are streaming the service without a machzor, I prepared some slides for you. For those who are still davening, just let the chants around you seep in as appropriate. We're on 223. We're going to be doing the top two sections and then the bottom two sections.
Yale, yale, kachanunenu me'erev, v'yahavo, v'yahavo, shalvatenu miboker, v'yera'eh rinunenu, ad arev, v'yera'eh, v'yera'eh, rinunenu ad arev, yale, yale, koleinu me'erev, v'yahavo, v'yahavo, tzidkatenu miboker, v'yera'eh bidyonenu ad arev, v'yera'eh, v'yera'eh, bidyonenu ad arev, yale, yale, dovkenu me'erev, v'yahavo, v'yahavo, gileinu miboker, v'yera'eh bakashatenu ad arev, v'yera'eh, v'yera'eh, bakashatenu ad arev, yale, yale, en kahatenu me'erev, v'yahavo, v'yahavo, elecha miboker, v'yera'eh eleinu ad arev, v'yera'eh, v'yera'eh, eleinu ad arev.
May our prayers rise up at evening, coming to you with the dawn, and transforming us at dusk. We continue on 225.
הנשם הלך, והגוף הוא הלך, חוסה, חוסה, המלך. הנשם הלך, והגוף שלח, אדוני עשה למען שמך. התנו על שמך אדוני, עשה למען שמך, בבור כבוד שמך. כי אלכנו ורחום שמך, למען שמך אדוני וסלחת לעווננו, כי רבו. דרכך אלוהינו להאריך אפך, להרעים ולטובים, והיא תהילתך.
דרכך אלוהינו להאריך אפך, לרעים ולטובים, והיא תהילתך.
למענך אלוהינו עשה ולא לנו, ראה עמידתנו דלים וריקים.
למענך אלוהינו עשה ולא לנו, ראה עמידתנו דלים וריקים.
תעלה ארוחה לעלה נידף, תנחם על עפר ואפר. תשליך ידינו ותחום במעשיך, תדע כי אין איש עשה עמנו צדקה.
ארוחה לך נידף, תנחם על עפר ואפר, תשליך חטאינו, תחום במעשיך, תדע כי אין איש עשה עמנו צדקה. 226. אל ערך אפיים אתה. בדרך תשובה הורית.
תעבור על פשע ותמחה אשם, כיום כי תסב עמו שם, תאזין שבתנו ותקשיב מנו מאמר, כיום ויקרא בשם אדוני, ויבוא אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים, ורב חסד ויאמר, נוסר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה. וסלחת על עווננו ולחטאתנו ונחתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו. מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו. כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד בכל קוראיך.
On 227, we have the pewt of clay in the hand of the potter. I often think that somehow when our soul is formed in the heavens, that somehow there's a spirit of God or an extension of God in the angels that can see the material that each of us is made from, and it's always a little different. And then we're born, and I'm sure parents and grandparents have a lot of opinions about the substance that we're made of, like how you're different from the other one and what your gifts and talents are. But when I get to 227, I like to sort of become my own parent and my own angel. Try to say, I've lived a while. What do I think my own talents, gifts, and materials are? What do I think I'm made of, so that I have a sense of how I wish God to mold my substance into its form for the new year, into my future self. 227, we'll do the first three in Hebrew and then switch to English and then go to the bottom in Hebrew.
כי הנה כחומר ביד היוצר, ברצותו מרכיב, ברצותו מקצר. כן אנחנו ביחד חסד נוצר להברית הבית, ויד תפן ליצר. כי הנה כאבן ביד המסתתר, ברצותו חץ, ברצותו מחתת. כן אנחנו בידך חיה וממוטט לברית הבית, יד תפן ליצר. כי הנה כגרזן בידך רש, ברצותו תדבק לאור וברצותו תרש. כן אנחנו בידך תומך אני ורש, לברית הבית, יד תפן ליצר.
As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, righteous God. Recall your covenant. Do not heed the accuser.
כי הנה ככסף ביד הצורף, ברצותו משגשג, ברצותו מצרף. כן אנחנו בידך ממציא למעזור טרף טרף לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר. כי הנה כחומר ביד היוצר, ברצותו מרחיב, ברצותו מקצר. כן אנחנו בידך חסד נוצר לברית הבית, יד תפן ליצר.
We continue with El Melech Yoshev on 229.
אל מלך יושב על כיסא רחמים, אל הורית לנו לומר 13, זכור לנו היום ברית 13 כמו שהודעת לנו מקדם כמו שכתוב. וירד אדוני בניו יתייצב עמו שם, ויקרא בשם אדוני, ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא, אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון וחשע וחטא ונקה. וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ולחטאנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, וחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
As it says in the Talmud Bavli, Rabbah, the son of Hanina, the elder, said in the name of Rav, if one sins and is embarrassed by what one has done, all of one's sins are forgiven. I ask you to turn to page 231. I'm just going to read the bottom. For those who are fluent in Hebrew, I ask you to read the Hebrew to yourself while I'm doing it in English, but this amazing, beautiful poem from Solomon ibn Gebirah is just gorgeous. Adonai, where shall I find you? High and hidden is your place. And where shall I not find you? The world is full of your glory. I sought your closeness. I called to you with all my heart. And going out to meet you, I found you coming toward me. Continue in the liturgy on 233. And I call up our ark opener for 233 at this time. For those who are streaming, it's pretty amazing for me to look and see every row filled all the way to the very back wall. And so it's like a 50K for people to come up with honors from the very back. One of my resolutions is exercise. Maybe I should start sitting in the back. Please rise.
Shema koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kaber v'rachamim v'ratzonat v'hilateinu.
Shema koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, chus v'rachem aleinu, v'ratzon et tefillatenu.
Hashivenu Adonai Elecha, v'nashuv v'chadesh amenu kekedem.
Hashivenu Adonai Elecha, v'nashuv v'chadesh amenu kekedem.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו.
אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה כי כלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה כי כלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
אל תעזבנו אלינו ותיקח ממנו סיימה כי אדוני תעשנו ותיקח ממנו יסינו לנו ביד יהי רצון אמרי פינו ויגיון ליבנו לפניך אדוני צורנו וגואלנו כי לך אכלנו. The
ark is closed, and as it is closed, we may be seated.
Eloheinu v'Eloi Abuteinu, al ta'zeh v'tishir v'tach limenu, al ta'fer b'cha itanu, korvenu l'toratecha, lamdenu mitzvotecha, horenu d'urachecha, hat libeinu l'ira et shmecha, mol elvaveinu l'avadecha, לשוב אליך באמת ובלב שלם, ולמען שמך הגדול תמחה ותזבח לעווננו, ככתוב בדברי קודשך, למען שמך אדוני וסלחת לעווני כי רבו.
On 234 and 235, we have Ki Anu Amecha and then Ashamnu. And for those who are streaming who may not have a Machzor, I've also prepared some readings that may appear before you. And we continue at the top of 234.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Selach lanu, Mecha lanu, Kaper lanu, Ki anu Amecha, V'yata Eloheinu, Anu Vanecha, V'yata Avinu, Anu Avadecha, V'yata Chelkeinu, Anu Galecha, V'yata Chelkeinu, Anu Nachalatecha, V'yata Goleinu, Anu Tzonecha, V'yata Roeinu, Anu Charmecha, V'yata Nozreinu, Anu Fulatecha, V'yata Yosreinu, Anu Rayatecha Viata Dodenu Anu Skulatecha Viata Krovenu Anu Amecha Viata Malkeinu Anu Mamirecha Viata Mamireinu Anu Wazefani Matara Kumaganon Anu Ksheora Vata Erekapayim Anu Yavon Vata Malay Rachamim Ani America say over Vatahun Shnotecha Lo Yitamu Eloheinu Velhei Avoteinu Tavol Chanak Filtin Avatit Kalamit Chadinatenu Shina Anachnu Azefanim Ukshioref Lamar Lefanecha No Eloheinu Velhei Avoteinu Tzadikim Anach Velokatanu Aval Anachnu Vavoteinu Hatanu.
Please rise. We're on 235.
Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Vakanu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi. Ay, 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 ay. Evinu, Hirshanu, Zanu, Hamasnu, Sheker. Ay, 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 ay. Asnuram, Kizavnu, Lasnu, Maranu, Niasnu, Saranu, Avinu, Pashanu, Saranu, Kishinu, Oreb. Ay, 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 ay. Rashanu, Shichanu, Tiabnu, Tainu, Titan.
You are seated.
Sahad, Ubamisfotecha, Mimiftecha, Hatovim, Elshavalunu. Vetat Tzadik, Akol Haba, Alenu, Kemet, Asita, Vanachnu, Hirshanu.
Bottom of the page.
Eloheinu velhei abuteinu, Slabachal, Lavonotina Biom Kippurim, Hatzeh Mechaver, Fasheinu, Vachadodenu, Minegedenecha, Vechofi Yasinu, Ishta Bedlach, Achna Orben Lashuv, Elecha, Chadesh Kiltenu, Ishmor Pudecha, Umol et Levavenu, Lava, Uya, Eshmecha, Kagatu, Vitorotecha, Umol Adonai Elohecha, et Levavcha, Velevav, Zerecha, Lava, et Adonai Elohecha, Vachol Levavcha, Uvachol Nafshecha, Lema Chayecha.
In a little while, we'll be at the Al-Chet. I'm going to ask you to read with me at the bottom of 236. One of the things we were talking about in the liturgy is that God is everywhere, and we should feel God's presence everywhere. And one of those places, and one of the reasons I love this reading, is that God is in us. God is in our heads. All of my thoughts, all of my chatter is heard by God. And part of what prayer is trying to formulate the thoughts that my innermost thoughts that are already in my head into a form that are really worthy of being part of God. Will you read with me the very last paragraph, you know the mysteries, in English? You know the mysteries of the universe, the deepest secrets of everyone alive. You probe our innermost depths. You examine our thoughts and feelings. Nothing escapes you. Nothing is secret from you. Therefore, may it be your will, our God and God of our ancestors, to forgive us for all our sins, to pardon us for all our iniquities, and to grant us atonement for all of our transgressions. On 237, you'll notice, as you probably always do, that many of the sins we're talking about have to do with the way we talk and our speech. And I want to share the fact that it was just a couple of months ago this summer that yours truly, Rav Nadav, was violating some of these very laws of speech and committing some of these very sins. And in what seemed like a very proud moment in the Cain household, I was in the middle of committing one of these sins when my 11 and 12-year-old daughters turned to me and said, "Dad, you shouldn't be talking like that." And I was like, "Wow, that's so great that you said that." And they said, "Because you know who's listening." And I said, "You know who's listening? Who's listening?" And they said, G-O. And for this moment of pure bliss, I felt like I have truly raised my children in the courts of God. They've been coming to services. They totally get it. And then I said, oh, God is listening. And then they said, oh, no, we meant Google. Google's listening. Because if we say, okay, Google, half your phones will go off right now. True story. Of course, I'm sure right after it happened, they immediately knew, you're going to say this on Yom Kippur, aren't you? I was like, yes, I'm going to say this on Yom Kippur. I have a new mug that I just got for my birthday from the staff, and it says, be careful, you may just end up in my sermon. Since the al-Khaits are meant to be a little bit creative and they can change, and in the supplement that many of us have before us, I have forms of al-Khaits I've written over the years. I wrote just a couple new ones that aren't in there, just for tonight, things that I do, and it's very short. For the sin of not being thankful enough that I was born a Jew. And for the sin of not studying how to be a Jew from the example of Jews by choice. For the sin of complaining about my body, and for the sin of not being thankful enough for it keeping me alive, for its ability to heal, for its pleasures, for its resilience, and for its going on this journey with me. For the sin of only talking to God when we want something, and for the sin of not talking to God in words of praise. And for those who are fortunate enough to have a home, a shelter. For the sin of dwelling, no pun intended, on what needs to be repaired, maintained, or is bothersome. And for the sin of not sufficiently appreciating how the home takes care of you, how it is a shelter for God's blessings. I add that to this year's al-Khaits. Please rise, we're on 237.
al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha ba'ones v'ratzon, v'al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha b'imutz halei, al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha b'ivli da'at, v'al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha b'bitui svatayim, al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha b'gilui arayot, al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha b'galui u'v'sater, al-Khait shekatanu lefanecha b'da'at u'v'mirma, we have
sinned against you by defrauding others. We have sinned against you in our innermost thoughts. We have sinned against you through forbidden trysts, and we have sinned against you through empty confession. We have sinned against you by scorning parents and teachers. And we have sinned against you purposely and by mistake. We switch to the Hebrew.
והחטא שקטן לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים ועל כולם אלוהים סליחה סלח לנו וחל לנו כפר לנו על חטא שקטן לפניך בכחש ובכזב והחטא שקטן לפניך בכפת שוחד al-Khait shekatan lefanecha v'ratzon, ve'al-Khait shekatan lefanecha b'lshon hara.
We have sinned against you by the way we do business. We have sinned against you in our eating and our drinking. We have sinned against you by greed and oppressive interest. And we have sinned against you through arrogance. We have sinned against you in everyday conversation. And we have sinned against you through conspiratorial glances.
al-Khait shekatan lefanecha be'inayim ramot, והחטא שקטן לפניך בעזות מצח, ועל כולם אלוהים סליחה סלח לנו וחל לנו כפר לנו. על חטא שקטן לפניך בפריקת עול, ועל חטא שקטן לפניך בפלילות.
If you're with me, recite with me. We have sinned against you by plotting against others, and we have sinned against you through selfishness. We have sinned against you through superficiality, and we have sinned against you through stubbornness. We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil, and we have sinned against you through gossip. We have sinned against you through empty promises, and we have sinned against you through baseless hatred. We have sinned against you by betraying trust, and we have sinned against you by succumbing to confusion.
על חטא שקטן לפניך בתשומת יד, ועל חטא שקטן לפניך בתמהון לבב.
All together.
ועל כולם אלוה סליחו, סלח לנו, כפר לנו.
We may be seated. I'm going to share a few al-Chaitz from Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt. You may know her better as the Velveteen Rabbi. For the sin of allowing my body to be an afterthought too often and too easily, by not walking, running, leaping, climbing, or dancing, although I am able, by eating in my car and at my desk mindlessly and without blessing, by not embracing those who needed it and not allowing myself to be embraced, by not praising everybody's beauty with all our quirks and imperfections, by letting my emotions run roughshod over the needs of others, by poking at sources of hurt like a child worrying a sore tooth, by revealing my heart before those who neither wanted nor needed to see it, by hiding love out of fear of rejection instead of giving love freely, by dwelling on what's internal when the world is desperate for healing, by indulging in intellectual argument without humility or consideration, by reading words of vitriol, cultivating hot indignation, by eschewing intellectual discomfort that might prod me into growing, by living in anticipation and letting anxiety rule me, by accepting defeatist thinking and the comfortable ache of despair, by not being awake and grateful despite uncountable blessings, by not being sufficiently gentle with my actions or with my language, by being not pliant and flexible, but obstinate, stark, and unbending, by not being generous with my time, with my words, or with my being, by not being kind to everyone who crosses my wandering path. For all these, eternal source of forgiveness, help me know myself to be pardoned. Help me feel in my bones that I am forgiven. Remind me I'm always already at one with you, and at one spelled together. For the word atone is at one. We're on page 243 for Avinu Malkeinu. I invite up Julie at this time. Please rise.
אבינו מלכנו חטאנו לפניך.
Avinu Malkeinu,
אבינו מלכנו אין לנו מלך אלא אתה.
Avinu Malkeinu, אין לנו מלך אלא
אבינו מלכנו עשה עמנו למען שמך. אבינו מלכנו חדש עלינו שנה טובה. אבינו מלכנו בטל מעלינו כל גזירות קשות. אבינו מלכנו בטל מחשבות שונאיהו. אבינו מלכנו הפר עצת אויבינו. אבינו מלכנו קלה קוצר ומסתין מעלינו. אבינו מלכנו קלה דבר וחרב ורב ושמיר משחית ועוון ושמד מבני בניתך. אבינו מלכנו סלח מחל עוונותינו. אבינו מלכנו מחה ועבר פשענו וחטאותינו מנגד עיניך.
We repeat each of the bolded lines.
אבינו מלכנו, חזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו, חזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו, שלח רפואה שלמה לכל עמך.
אבינו מלכנו, שלח רפואה שלמה לכל עמך.
אבינו מלכנו, זוכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו, זוכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר חיים טובים.
מלכנו, כותבנו בספר חיים טובים.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר גאולה וישועה.
מלכנו, כותבנו בספר גאולה וישועה.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר פרנסה וכלכלה.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר פרנסה וכלכלה.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר זכויות.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר זכויות.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר סליחה ומחילה.
אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר סליחה ומחילה. Please recite with me in English. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us for good in the book of life. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of sustenance. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of merit. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of forgiveness. Avinu Malkeinu, cause our salvation to flourish soon.
Cause your people Israel to be exalted.
Avinu Malkeinu, raise up your anointed with strength.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, be kind, sympathize with us.
Avinu Malkeinu, accept our prayer willingly and lovingly.
Avinu Malkeinu, do not turn us away empty-handed.
Avinu Malkeinu, remember that we are but dust.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion for us, our infants and our children.
Avinu Malkeinu, do this for the sake of those who are martyred for your holy name.
Avinu Malkeinu, do this for the sake of those who are slaughtered.
Avinu Malkeinu, do this for the sake of those who went through fire and water to sanctify your holy name.
Avinu Malkeinu, do this for your sake. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh lemancha imloho lemanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Aneinu Manenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Aneinu Manenu. Yen Manu Masi. Aseh Manu. Tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh Manu. Tzedaka v'chesed. V'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Manenu, Yimanu Masi.
Add a little volume.
Aseh Manu, Tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh Manu, Tzedaka v'chesed. V'hoshienu.
We may be seated. I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but one thing President Deborah Ball has in common with God is she appears to be everywhere. Whenever I'm with the staff and I tell Beth, I just had a half an hour meeting with Deborah. She's like, wait, I did too. And I'm like, how many of them are there? And then someone else says, oh yeah, I had one this morning at 8 a.m. So we are incredibly fortunate to have this president who has taken on the mantle of so many impressive and proud past presidents of this congregation and carrying on that tradition. It's my honor to welcome Deborah Ball to the Bima at this time.
Congregation. This is actually the fourth year that I've had the privilege of addressing you at this holiest time of our year. Lately, I find myself thinking about safety. Each morning when I head out to work, my husband Richard says, "Drive safely." And when I walk out of services at Beth Israel here each Shabbat, our security guard, Ed Boguszewski, says, "Have a good week, be safe." On the face of it, these are statements of care. They're also messages of connection, of Richard and Ed to me, any one of us to another. So how, you might ask, does safety relate to this Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur? Our tradition holds that it is now that the book of life is inscribed for another year. Who will die and who will live? Who will suffer and who will thrive? It is a profoundly individual day as we each turn to look back across the past year and look forward to the year ahead. As we hope to be among those whose names are written in the book of life, we engage in teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah. We repeat these three to ourselves over and over again across the hours of this day. These are the pathways to our flourishing, to living with health and with joy. Teshuvah, turning, means that we turn inward to contemplate who we are and how we are each still becoming the human we are capable of being. Tefillah, prayer, means that we immerse ourselves in the power of our connection to Adonai. Tzedakah means that we renew our commitment to give to others. Essentially, we're doing our part to be granted another year of life. But as we stand here at the threshold of this year, that's not all there is to it. Although Yom Kippur is a profoundly individual opportunity, it's not just about each of us as separate people. Tonight I want to talk to you about the importance of praying also that we, Beth Israel congregation, as a community, be inscribed in the book of life. What might that mean for us? To be inscribed in the book of life as a congregation certainly requires us to care for one another as individuals, but it also requires us to care for this entity that we call Beth Israel and all those who comprise it, past, present, and future. One thing that stands out is the unique way in which our tradition emphasizes not just words, but actions. Our staff carries out this commitment daily. Rabbi Kane, Jerry Sorokin, Beth Jarvis, Sam Zielinski, Meg Bernstein, Mary Lytle, Barb McAnally, Lynn Kane, Ed Boguszewski, and Amanda Fisher, and our whole kitchen staff. They don't just espouse chesed. They don't just worry about our security as a community. They act. They do. One active step that our board has taken this past year to pursue our commitment to care can be seen in our new Chesed Committee. This is part of our strategic plan, now in its third year. The mission of the Chesed Committee is to support those among us who are dealing with loss, illness, or other challenges. But caring for one another also means explicitly caring for our collective safety. And this is no small thing. If we don't concern ourselves with our safety and security, how could we be sealed in the book of life? So I think a little bit more about what it means when my husband says to me each morning, or when Ed says to me when I walk out, be safe, drive safely. At first, these might just seem like nice things to say, but actually, on reflection, I interpret them as enjoinders to do my part to contribute to safety as a collective need. My driving, after all, is not just an individual act. I'm driving in and among dozens of other drivers. I'm to do my part to contribute to our collective safety on the road by being considerate of others and by paying attention to other drivers. Ed's saying, be safe, is a reminder that I play a role as part of a community, caring for others, for caring for others' well-being, for their security, and not just by attending to their physical safety, but also by being watchful, by being attentive to the emotional and respectful safety of others, my family, my students, my colleagues, and each of you. I don't have to tell you that in the past year, we have continued to come face to face with our physical vulnerability as Jews. The specter of anti-Semitism and ignorance threatened us as we moved around our community, read the news, watched media. It threatened us even as we approached and entered within these walls. These concerns are big. They challenge our safety. They create a sense of insecurity. Because our traditions focus on doing, these threats require our action. They call upon us collectively. With respect to our physical safety, we together are protected by Ed Boguszewski and his wonderful team, but we need one another too. We need some of us to get training, to be prepared to know what to do if something threatening happens. We also need to show up for one another. We cannot, we must not retreat. Together we can be safe. Together we can be aware and strong. And when we're together, we're nourished by one another's care and by being in community. There are other challenges to our safety too. We faced our fiscal vulnerability with respect to maintaining our synagogue. We've confronted our financial precariousness and the critical threats of our environment. We're concerned for our ability to sustain needed operations of Beth Israel and our responsibility to sustain the planet. Just as we can act to provide for our collective physical safety and security, so too can we act to help provide for our fiscal and environmental security. As we each commit to contribute funds for our expenses and our time to our activities and programs, we're sharing in the work of ensuring our safety. Our board has led us in a new direction to understand and contribute dues by sharing what our collective expenses are and by being transparent about how we can share in those costs in ways that are fair. Our green team has led us in adopting practices such as recycling and composting, hosting a garden, and in planning for our building for years into the future. So to be inscribed in the Book of Life as a congregation, we must consider how we each matter to our collective, present, and long-term security. Will Beth Israel as a congregation be alive 50 years from now? Will it be thriving in 5844? Will we have contributed to that? Will we have contributed to preserving our environment and our building? These kinds of security are about our sustainability as a congregation and as a planet. Our contributions are not just for us. They're for those who will come after us. As I said last year from the Bima, and Rabbi Kane spoke about it on Rosh Hashanah, we should understand ourselves to be not like a fitness club, but rather like a CSA, community-supported agriculture. I have a membership at Orange Theory, I know some of you do as well, and my monthly fee corresponds to how often I would like to go there. But my family and I are also members of a CSA, and we pay a share that isn't related to whether we do happen to like eggplant or want peppers in a given week. My membership at Orange Theory is not out of a commitment to sustain it as a business. It's for me. Our membership in the CSA, however, is for the community's need to produce and distribute healthy food. Here at Beth Israel, we're engaged in the collective project of ensuring our safety and our sustainability in all senses of those words. We are each crucial to that collective project, and our contributions to that project are acts of chesed, of loving kindness. As we strive to be inscribed in the Book of Life as a congregation, to thrive, to be healthy, to be safe, we engage together in teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah. As we look back and turn to see ourselves and how we've been as a community, as we pray together across the next day, and as we engage together in acts of chesed, our individual contributions are vital. Reaching out to people we don't yet know, reconnecting with those from whom we've become estranged, or welcoming those perching at the edges of our kehillah, our congregation. Let us tonight commit to new and renewed connections. For Beth Israel to be inscribed in the Book of Life depends on all of us together as one large and very diverse community, caring for each other now. But it also includes caring for those whose labor and love brought us to this place, as well as for those who will comprise this community 50, 75, 100 years from now. May you each be inscribed for a sweet year, and may Beth Israel, our congregation, also be sealed in the Book of Life. I'm grateful for all the ways in which we've already grown in seeing ourselves as members of a collective and not just a collection of individuals, and the ways that we've set out to pursue that goal together. I wish you a Shana Tova, a year of sweetness and joy, good health, restoration, healing, and optimism. And I wish it for the us that is Beth Israel, that is collective, that is more than the sum of each of us, and that stretches out beyond us to the future of Beth Israel here in Ann Arbor, next year, and for years to come. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Gemar Tov. Yishkochech. Thank you. $245 for Kaddish Shalom. Every time Neil points at you, you have to repeat something.
Yitkada v'yikada shemei rabba.
Amen.
V'yalma divrachiruhute v'yamelich malchute.
Malchute.
V'chayichon uvyomechon ufchayedecha beit Yisrael b'galahu v'zman kariv. V'yimru,
Amen.
Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam olamei halamaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpoar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar Vidala v'yitala Shemei the Kodesh Shemei the Kodesh
Prichum
Leila min kol berchata V'shirata Tushbichata V'nechemata Damiran Be'alma Tushbichata V'nechemata Damiran v'yalma v'yimru.
Amen.
Titkabel slotron v'va'otron decha Yisrael Kodam v'vuhom divishmaya v'yimru.
Amen.
Ishlam Araba Mishemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'yahal Kol Yisrael V'yimru.
Amen.
Ose Shalom Bimroma Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru. Amen.
We rise for Aleinu 246.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה מיוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שם חלקנו בהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, שבקרוב השמיים עמם, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אמת מלכנו, אמת זולתו, גדלנו בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים עמה, והארץ כי המלכות שלך היא עולמין עד תימוק וגבוה, ככתוב בתורתך, לא ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
We may be seated as we skip ahead to page 248. I'm going to ask Neil to sing the part that you can see in red, a few verses down, from Achat Sha'alti.
אחת שואלתי מאת אדוני אותה בקש. אחת שואלתי מאת אדוני אותה בקש. שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי. לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו. לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו.
As your eye glances down the page of Psalm 27, you'll notice that in the translation it says, "It is you of whom my heart said, seek my face." It's interesting because we're in a transition in the liturgy between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In the Rosh Hashanah liturgy and the Rosh Hashanah Torah readings, God calls out and human beings say, Hineni, here I am. In tomorrow's Haftarah, it's the opposite. We call out and God says, Hineni, I am here. And you see the transition here. My heart is the one telling God, seek my face, waiting for a response from God to say, I'm here seeking your face. As the Psalms say, as a face is reflected in water, so is one human heart reflected in another's. But that transition will be very serious as we continue through the Yom Kippur liturgy of the next 24 hours. Neil finishes it up at the bottom of the page. We turn to the page before 247 for Mourner's Kaddish. For those who are reciting the Kaddish on this night, please rise and recite along with me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute. V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayetecho Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shmei Dekudesha Le'ela le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imeru Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories continue to bring blessings to this world. I love the theatrics of this ritual drama. We kind of feel so special on Kol Nidre, and then tonight, don't miss Nila, because it has the continuation of this drama, this special way of being, of collecting all together. And doing Kol Nidre together, of saying that all of my New Year's resolutions, they're already forgiven if I don't do them. And that's so, and I don't like it because I get off of my resolutions. I like it because it's not the ritual drama of, I can do whatever I want because God will forgive me, like I can go out and do bad things. It's more that God is saying, what are you going to do to be your best self? How are you going to use this power to change and walk with me in a different way and walk with others in a different way? And I give you the freedom to try it and experiment with it. And if it doesn't work out, you're already forgiven for that. So be free, try. Can you imagine if someone said, hey, I know you may not think you can write poetry, but we're going to sit down right now and you're going to pour out your heart into something, and don't worry if it's not as good as everybody else's. Don't worry if it doesn't work out. You get to play. Ritual drama is so much about playing around. I know that during these holidays and in the email I sent out, I tried to let people know that these neders, these nidarim, these nidre of Kol Nidre, really are New Year's resolutions. It's not just where I've gone wrong, but it's where my future self is going to go right. It's so fascinating, as I spoke about on second day Rosh Hashanah, that you would think the rabbis would say that oathing is some very, very specific legal formula. You put your hand on the Bible and you say, hereby promise for 5 months I'm going to go to Orange Theory. Is that what it's called? For me, I'm just going to drink orange juice. But you know that you're going to do something. And they say the image is Hannah's prayer in the Rosh Hashanah Haftarah. It's just that something crosses your lips that says, this is what I'm going to do in the coming year. If you say it to God, then for sure, but if it crosses your lips and other people hear it, you've just made a resolution. And resolutions aren't forever, they're time-bound. If you didn't give a time context, then it's 30 days. But normally it's something that can happen within the next year and does not go beyond it. So why go through this ritual performance? Don't we live in a time when everyone makes fun of ritual, that it's empty? What does it mean to put oneself in character? What does it mean to wear white? What does it mean to live this public play where the words stay the same, but you're saying them? I've often translated for, like, when I teach, for me, I think of prayers as poetry, but when you say them, you're making it as if you wrote that poem. That's ritual drama. You're inhabiting the character. And there's enormous power in that. And even more power when you do it publicly and collectively. And it's powerful psychologically. You're saying that your present self is the one who does these not so great things and doesn't want to. And you're dressing up. And in this new play, this play that you are now a part of and saying these words, your future self is the one who doesn't even want to do these things that you've been doing. That's what ritual performance is. In the Torah, there's the ritual performance of taking a vow not to drink. And it's like an AA meeting, as if someone is beginning their future self, playing and experimenting with it. In other words, it's like the AA meeting where you say, it may have only been 3 days, but I'm the person who doesn't want to drink. I'm the person who doesn't need a drink. I'm the person who has a life without drinking. In Parashat Naso, there is a very challenging ritual performance that follows a couple experiencing adultery or suspected adultery. And as the Talmud says, either they get a divorce or they publicly go through a ritual in which the spouse says, I never cheated on you. And the other spouse says, I believe you. And they recommit to one another in love. It's like let's let go of the selves we were a week ago. And let's, in this ritual drama, let's play a part of, I'm the person who's committed to this relationship, and you are too. And there's no one I'd rather be married to. I think of the ritual performance of bar and bat and brit mitzvah, right? And everyone always says, no, come on, they're not an adult yet. And I grew up in a synagogue, and it was all silly because the rabbi said I was an adult, and I knew I wasn't. That's like saying it's silly to tell the person at their third AA meeting they're not now, they're a person who can have a life without drinking. It's the beginning of it. And they go through this drama, and they wear the clothes of an adult, and they say the prayers of an adult as if they're of their own. And it's the first day of the new life. This is the first day of the new life of your future self. The anthropologist or social anthropologist Victor Turner, he wrote that in ritual performances, actors, people are temporarily extricated from their social statuses. A prince in the tribe, when going through a ritual performance, is just a peasant. A peasant can become the prince's teacher and their mentor. And in Yom Kippur, we have a flattening effect. It's actually not so flattering. It's a flattening effect. You're just a yid, and you're just a yid, and I'm just a yid. And all of the kind of titles and personas we wear and titles we wear during the year, it doesn't matter, because we're all the same. So as we step into our future selves in practice, we leave our social status behind. You're not going from head of surgery to a logical next step in your life. You're just going from being a human being to the logical next step of your life. And the research, or some of the research I've been reading on people who are facing retirement or partial retirement or second retirement, for some of you, third retirement, some of the research says that one of the most effective ways of doing so is to let go of the status of your former self and see yourself as, I'm just a human being. Maybe I went from being a professor of biblical history, and today I'm just a neighbor who's learning how to grow tomatoes from the neighbor next door. Sometimes it's like starting all over. The ritual of this year gives you a chance to think about that. My future self, I'm just a person, right? What's my next step? Not the logical next step of my persona, but the first day of the rest of my life. I'm fascinated, as I mentioned on Erev Rosh Hashanah, by the work on future selves, pioneered by, among others, Hazel Marcus at Stanford and Paula Nurias at the University of Washington, both coincidentally, I think, PhDs from the University of Michigan. They tell us that we spend our time rooted in our present selves, often thinking about ourselves, trying to understand ourselves, and explaining ourselves to others. We're trying to answer the question, who am I? Well, what should I do? I'm a kind person. I'm a creative person. And this kind of thinking is actually not as helpful as you might think in getting your life on track. Nor is future thinking of a daydreaming variety. Well, what if I stop doing some of this and do a little bit more of that? What if I go back to playing piano? This kind of thinking is fleeting and not grounded in reality. You know, religion is often framed as learning how to be in the present moment. And that's true 1/3 of the time. We need to do the work of being in the present moment. As one of my great teachers, the musician Robert Fripp, says, it takes a lot of technical preparation and work to be able to be in the present moment. and most people just don't want to put in the effort. The kind of work that few who call themselves musicians actually put in. The kind of work that involves suffering and time spent and leads to enormous vulnerability and openness to others' judgment in order to experience the world with the recaptured innocence of living in the present moment. So yes, we need to do the work of living in the present moment. We also need to do the work of being in the past moment. From Torah study to history study, from reflection to literature, from speaking with our ancestors to speaking with our therapist. We need to do the work of being in the past moment. And we need to do the work, which is the theme of this holiday, of being in the future moment. So the scholarship of living your future self says that the following is effective. And to me, it's the ritual that we're all involved in. They say you actually have to envision yourself doing your New Year's resolution or resolutions in the future, 10 years in the future, right? So I'm going to ask you to think right now. If you don't have one, I'm going to give you a multiple choice in a little while, okay? Think of one New Year's resolution, one resolution you have. Now imagine you are doing it in your mind's eye in 10 years, right? Is it journaling every morning for half an hour? Is it calling someone every Monday? Is it making salad for dinner? And I want you to actually see in your mind's eye your future self. I mentioned on second day Rosh Hashanah that my doctor and the McNeil Lehrer NewsHour, coincidentally, about 7 years ago, challenged me in the same week to try to get to lose half the weight of what I weighed when I graduated college. So if I was 30 pounds away from what I weighed the year I graduated college, so they said, go halfway. I had to envision myself making that salad. I had to envision myself what I'm actually doing to do this. I had to envision myself actually shopping and what I'm putting in my cart at Costco. And the research says that if you envision it, it is more likely to happen by a significant probability. If you are a negative person and you are only motivated by fear, then it actually works if you do the opposite. You can actually envision yourself doing the opposite of what your New Year's resolution is. There I am in 10 years, and Marav and Ziva come home from college and they say, Dad, I want to go on one of these 10-mile bike rides that take you down the river and come back. And I see myself on the sofa having just finished a bowl of pasta. And I say, why don't you guys go? And we'll have quality time when you get back. So you can envision the opposite of what you want, and the research finds that's actually equally motivating to actually become a different person. I sent out an email, not expecting that many people to reply, asking you to share some of your New Year's resolutions of what your future self wants to look like. And I can't believe how many I got back. So it went on for pages. I picked out some of them, and there are no names with them, and they have been all potentially identifying content is gone. So trust me on this, no one's going to be able to know it was you. If you don't have a New Year's resolution yet, think about whether one of your fellow Yidden has one for you. I'm going to call up a friend I haven't spoken to in a long time every Monday and see how they are. I'm going to spend more time with my most neglected child, my dog. Okay, so if one of these is I'm asking you to close your eyes, and I'll know it's you because I'll see you close your eyes, okay? So, Owen, if I see you close your eyes, I know your dog needs a little bit more attention. But I see yourself, what are you actually doing with the dog, right? I'm going to get better at answering emails in a timely fashion. So see yourself, that email comes in, you're kind of about to go, I don't know, make a cup of coffee or tell someone something. You're like, you know what? I'll just send one line back. It doesn't have to be Robert Frost. I hope to be more open to joy in the present. I'm going to focus on reconnecting to my community. What does that actually look like in your mind's eye? I'm going to see people and meet them where they are. And I'm going to see them through their goals for themselves instead of my goals for them. I'm going to be more intentional in spending time with and building a deeper, loving, and playful bond with my child. I'm going to follow the advice of Booker T. Washington and improve my life by improving the lives of others. What will that look like? Right? It's not enough like that. That's just fleeting. You have to picture yourself doing it. What are you doing? How did you get there? I'm going to remember to treat others as well as I can, and for the faults that I'm too blind to see in myself, I hope God will forgive me and grant me another year. I'm going to cultivate greater understanding and to show more respect for views and groups to which I've always been opposed. What would that look like? And if it's at Thanksgiving, can I not be there? Because that sounds... I always think at Thanksgiving it's the time never to bring up difficult topics. I'm going to be a more patient caregiver. I'm going to spread more loving kindness more consistently in the future. I'm going to reduce the amount of comments I make to my children by 50%. So you have to picture yourself. I'm going to devote at least, I'm going to devote at least half an hour of meaningful conversation every day with my spouse. How's that going to happen? You're going to be at the dinner table? You're going to be somewhere else? You're going to be taking a walk? I'm going to volunteer once a week in every place that needs help. A school, library, JFS, wherever it is. I'm going to acknowledge my fears and vulnerabilities and my weaknesses, to recognize the parts of me that are difficult to embrace, but which complete the package of who I am. I'm going to practice more civic engagement, because at this particular time in the area of political action, it's necessary. And I'm going to have more compassion and less snippy behavior toward people's behaviors that irritate me. Just because it pushes my buttons doesn't mean that it matters. I'm going to let go of outcomes and trust that clear communication of expectations is sufficient. I know that. I am going to keep the vow I made in the pandemic, that should the day come, I will be grateful for the time spent each day in the bringing my kids to and from school and their extracurricular activities. For those who do that or remember it, it can be stressful and a time of impatience. And yet it is the V'ahavta. We show our love in what is shared in the going and the coming along the way. You know, I am always focused on goals which are too big, and I ignore the small but critical things which make up the business of life. To use a baseball analogy, I'm going to stop trying to hit a home run and trying to hit a single. I'm going to spend less time building up my own ego and soliciting praise, and more time building up other people. I'm going to talk less, affirm more, and ask more questions. I'm resolved not to let my stress affect my family. How do you see yourself doing that? I am also resolved to do everything I can from my place in the diaspora to help keep Israel a functional democracy. I am going to take a moment for a deep breath before I let my reaction show. I know this will require increased patience and sensitivity to others and to their perspectives. I'll let you know, Rabbi, how it goes. My resolution is to do what I know I need to do to improve my health and be the sun and not the salt. My resolution is to be more patient with my children, with my clients, with my friends, and especially my spouse, although that one's pushing it a little bit. I'm going to be grateful for the opportunities my family has that keep us busy rather than complaining about the chaos in our lives. I should be truly thankful for that chaos. And I'll be more patient with it. I'm going to make a conscious effort to judge less, trying to unravel my own judgments and reconsider them, and express appreciation and gratitude to people, especially strangers, when they don't expect it. I'm vowed to build a community that extends beyond Ann Arbor. I want to think about it and talk with people about what it might look like. I'm going to treat my family like the people they are now, and not the people I remember. I resolve to stop, as my kids describe it, my catastrophizing, although it feels almost impossible. My resolution for this year is to write down the stories I have lived so that they can be passed on and shared with both the joys and sorrows of life's lessons. My resolution is to continue my sobriety in the coming year. My resolution is to do better not making so many impulse purchases. My resolution is to spend more one-on-one time with my grandchildren rather than with them all together. I could add that to children. I'm going to expand the time I spend each morning studying the Parsha. I'm going to lean into developing my voice and my confidence. I'm going to be more centered in myself and with God, a God that I am a part of, a God that gives me life and strengthens me, so I can be more present with others, more aware of the beauty and peace that is around us. And I will not forget the part we play in adding to the beauty and being comfortable in that stillness. I'm going to keep playing pickleball. I'm going to improve the playing on my instrument. I'm going to attend the Shabbat service and read Torah when possible. I will conclude with 5. So if any of those knocked your socks off, and that's my future self, a couple of things you got to do according to the future self research, because this is a ritual drama of future selves. Number 1, exactly what we already said in the Talmud. You got to tell somebody. It becomes a resolution only when it's spoken out loud, not when it's said in your heart. Right? Hannah actually had to mumble through her lips, and then it was gold. You have to tell one other person, or you can say it in prayer to God if you say it out loud. Number 2, you have to take one step, not too extreme, toward your positive future self. So not, I'm going to get the health club, and I'm going to meet Deborah every morning. Too much for me, right? Take one step toward your future self. Number 3, find an expert companion in the area that your future self is going to play in. Could be someone who's already good at it. It could be a therapist. Number 4, share your goal weekly with at least one person. Those who share their progress, and it could just be, I took one walk. It could be, I got the bicycle fixed, but I didn't get on it. It could be, I made one salad, but I had to throw it out because I waited so long that it was already pretty wilted. You got to share it doesn't matter, even if it's backward progress. You got to share progress with at least one person once a week. Those who do this completed their goals at a rate of 70% versus a rate of 35% for those in their studies who did not. It could be your productivity, your writing, you're improving your work-life balance. And finally, reach out to one weak tie in your social circle. Someone that's not been one of your tightest friends, but someone you used to spend more time with or you see occasionally, right? Someone who was in your sorority or something like that, or used to drop off your kids at the JCC 30 years ago for childcare. Reach out to what they call a weak tie in your social circle. You don't have to give up your friends or anything like that, but just one small change, one renewed friendship where you can freely be on your way to your future self. I close with the prayer of Menachem Creditor. Dear God, may we learn and remember how to open up our hearts and minds and souls. May we reclaim the headlines with the shocking good we'll do. May our children inherit some good decisions we'll make to offset our countless mistakes. And may we take really good care of each other and heal this fragile world. And we say, may your future self be sealed in the book of life for a good and successful year. I invite Neil back up for Yigdal on page 250.
יגדל אלוקים חי וישתבח, יזם וינק אל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, לעולם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו, אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, קדמון לכל דבר שנברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו, הינו אדון עולם בכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו, שפן נבואתו נתנו, אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נביא ומלביד את תמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לעמו אל, היד נביאו למען ביתו, לא יכל לפעל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים זולתו, צופף ויודע זכרנו, מביט לכל סבר בקדמתו, גומר לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע כרישתו, ישלח לגית שמים משיחנו, לפתוח מחכה כהת ישועתו, מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו, מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו.
A couple of brief announcements. A meditation, the Kol Nidre meditation with Sandy Finkel will take place immediately following the service in the GNS 2010 building. I want to remind you the rules of Yom Kippur: no eating, drinking, luxurious bathing, and no intimacy and leather. So if it's your idea of a good evening to eat, drink, luxuriously bathe, and then intimacy and leather, it'll have to wait till tomorrow night. For those who are fasting, remember what the Talmud says. It says, Rabbi Yanai said, if a person says they need to eat, and the doctor says they do not need to eat, one listens to the person. What's the reason for this halacha? Is because the verse states in Proverbs, the heart knows its own soul. So for those who need to eat or to drink, don't let what your soul is telling you stop you. And as I've said in previous years, a misdemeanor violation as opposed to a consequential violation is it's only a misdemeanor if once, no more than once per hour, one has one mouthful of liquid and one mouthful of food. And I think that's a much better way to fast, which is a little bit of mouthful of banana. I know I said banana, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say anything, but and a mouthful of water. If you do that once an hour or once every 2 hours, I have found other people tell me that it sustains the spiritual intensity of the fast without the bitterness of the soul. May you have an easy fast. May you meditate with great success. And may you avoid the intimacy leather and all other things. And the service continues in the morning at 8:30 a.m.
Fire. Just fire.
Same to you.